So as I mentioned, since its founding, Spotify has been focused on building a better audio experience for creators and listeners all over the world. And today, that means over 500 million people turn to Spotify to find their next great listen. An entire industry's grown when Spotify enters the space. It's a lot of history to try and distill into one slide, but the core change is that we took a product and a format that was relatively limited and put it on a platform where hundreds of millions of people. We then invested in making the format, which has historically been quite one-sided. You make a podcast, put it out into the world, you try and find distribution and hope it would work. So we invested in making that format more interactive, so that listeners could directly engage with their favourite shows and their favourite hosts through products like Q&A. And we also expanded video access on the platform so that listeners could watch their favourite hosts as well as listen if they wanted to. Let's start with where the industry is today. And since starting, one data point that's really fascinated me is that the number of ebooks far surpasses the number of audiobooks. So if you look at Spotify, there are more than 350,000 audiobooks available to purchase today. But by our best estimation, there are more than 12 million ebooks available, and many more books beyond that, of course. So this tells us a few things. It tells us that the catalogue could and should be so much bigger than it is. That probably tells us that the barriers for making audiobooks for authors and publishers are probably still too high, and that there likely hasn't been enough audience demand or discovery to incentivize more creation. Although it's a format that has existed for decades, not a lot has changed with the mainstream audiobook experience, despite really vast advances and improvements with software, technology, and consumer products at large. So at Spotify, we really believe that we can reimagine the audiobook experience. We think we can enable authors to express themselves in new, different, and dynamic ways, and to find new audiobook listeners all over the world. How do we do that? Well, we're approaching it in the following 3 ways. First, access. We need to create a new way for listeners to access audiobooks so that we can reach the broadest possible audience. Second, we need to build world-class discovery and personalization tools for every single platform to help new listeners discover their first book, their next book, and the next book beyond that. And third, we need to build a rich suite of tools and data products for authors and publishers to be able to create, to publish, to promote and distribute titles, to understand your audience, and to earn and grow. Let's go into a bit more detail. So let's talk about accessibility. And the first and most impactful point here is really bringing audiobooks to Spotify's existing global scale on our highly engaged user base. So we have the opportunity, by introducing audiobooks to Spotify, to bring it to over 650 million users, over 239 million subscribers in 180 markets all over the world. It's just a huge amount of people to reach. And we know from our experience with podcasts that our listeners are quick to adopt new formats and that many of them are not current audiobook listeners. That presents a massive opportunity to grow the audience of audiobooks just within our existing base. And these are numbers that continue to grow month on month. And that's why, as was mentioned at the start, in 2022, we introduced an a la carte option for audiobooks. And this allowed listeners to buy and consume audiobooks within Spotify for the first time. And then in 2023, so just last year, we followed this up with our new offering, which is called Audiobooks and Premium. This gives Spotify Premium subscribers access to 15 hours of audiobook content every single month. And this approach introduces the format to a really large, hopefully a really new audience who are not regularly engaging with books or audiobooks generally. And since our launch last autumn, we've seen a lot of promising signals with this model. So first, we're seeing really huge numbers of listeners streaming audiobook content. Over 25% of eligible premium subscribers have listened to audiobooks through their premium subscription. That's tens of millions of people already, and we're working hard to expand that to even more markets. So just last month, we did expand to 3 more markets, to New Zealand, Canada, and Ireland. And in just 4 weeks, we're already seeing faster adoption in those markets than in the first 3 markets we launched in. So this is super interesting for me and really positive because it tells us that our audience are becoming more aware of Spotify as an audiobook platform, that the format's gaining serious traction, and that this access model, the discovery model, is broadening and accelerating the reach of the format at large. But what are these folks listening to? Well, they're not just listening to the most popular titles, because we're seeing that listeners are trying a range of new and different books. So since launch, over 150,000 unique books from the catalogue have been played. And so of course that means that Jeanette McCurdy's I'm Glad My Mum Died has got a whole load of listeners on Spotify. It means that Funny Story by Emily Henry has also got a huge audience on our product. But we're also seeing back catalogues find success on Spotify. So 14 of the top 50 audiobook and premium titles were released before 2020. And I'll just give you one example of that. So A Court of Thorn and Roses, which was released 9 years ago, that recently came onto Spotify. It quickly rose to be our third most streamed title on the platform. So that tells me that access and discovery brings real potential for older titles to find a new audience when they're made available on the platform. Let's go to the second point, let's talk about discovery. Because in addition to broadening access, we've already started delivering products that make it easier for listeners to discover the right title for them at the right time. And that helps authors to find their audience. The first part of this is something we call our ubiquity strategy at Spotify. And this is really all about making audiobook content everywhere that listeners expect it. And it's something that we've been doing for years. It's creating a really frictionless experience by making Spotify available everywhere that you want to play. And we know that our most engaged listeners listen across multiple devices throughout different moments of the day. So it's really important that we support the hardware that they want to play on. So for me, and you might, I don't know if this is a weird thing, I don't think it's that weird, but for me I have a Samsung TV in my lounge and I listen to audiobooks on my TV sometimes. So it's really important that we supported that device from day one, because when I'm in that listening moment, I might choose something else if it's not available. And today, that means that Spotify supports 2,000 platforms and devices, which means listeners can access their audiobooks everywhere, whether that's on their mobile device, whether that's on their tablet, whether that's on their smartwatch, or even their smart fridge, which is my favorite example. If you have a smart fridge, you've got to let me know afterwards. So, in addition to that, we don't just make it available on these devices, we make sure that personalization is tailored to these devices. So, you might imagine that if you're listening in your car, and we support a wide range of cars, that we tailor the perfect audiobook recommendation for your next long drive. What it is for your smart fridge, I don't know. Maybe it's a recipe book if it's in your fridge, if it's in your kitchen. So that brings me to my next point, which is about personalization and discovery. Because we really don't just want to make access possible, we want to make sure that the right content finds the right listeners at the right time. It's really important to get a new audience onto audiobooks. And there are so many people out there searching for their next great book. There's so much great literature. And bridging this gap is something that we think we're uniquely positioned to help solve. Thankfully, world-class discovery products are really in the DNA of our company. It's something that we think about every single day. We've developed some of the most powerful recommendation algorithms for audio content, and they all work towards one really simple goal, which is delivering listeners the best piece of content at every single moment. And if any of you are Spotify listeners, whether habitual listeners or you've just tried the product once or twice, hopefully you recognize some of the products that are sitting up on the screen behind me. Products like AI DJ, Daylist, or Discover Weekly. These are all products that take cutting-edge machine learning or AI to craft really simple but magical discovery experiences. And as a result of products like these, more than 2 billion discoveries happen every single day on Spotify. Of course, we're taking all this goodness and all this knowledge and we're funneling that into how we think about audiobooks. So one product I'm really proud of that we built is the dedicated audiobook feed, which is available from the Spotify home. So if you open Spotify, Home tab is the first thing you see. If you click the audiobook filter at the top, you get into a dedicated audiobook only feed. And this presents listeners with an algorithmically generated list of personalized recommendations of audiobooks. So listeners can scroll this personalized feed and then easily preview or try the recommended content to try and find something that's right for them. And it offers listeners a great way to try audiobook content on Spotify. Although Spotify's app features will be the same for all of us, this personalized feed is going to be very different for each one of us. So my feed will be very different to your feed. And this is actually my feed from a couple of weeks ago. And I thought I'd keep this example in because I'm in New York. And the New Yorker is such a New York institution. And I'm a huge listener to the New York radio app, so I'm habitually listening to David Remnick and the others, hobnob with the great good of the world. And this was a great recommendation for me, because this gave me audiobooks that are popular with listeners to the New York radio hour. And what I really liked about this recommendation as well is that one of the examples here is a book from Jill Lepore, who's one of the staff writers at the New Yorker and someone that I read all the time. So I knew it was a good recommendation, and that's on my to-listen list. We've also built audiobooks into the main Spotify Home tab. So once again, this is my actual home from last week. And what we're trying to do here, so everything is machine learning powered, and we're really trying to predict what each listener wants to listen to when they come back into the app. So you can see on the right, the second one down, I'm about 70% of the way listening to the Patagonia Founders book. So we're trying to nudge me back into that. Maybe I want to restart my session. I also recently saved Hannah Kane's new novel, Sunbringer, which just came out in audiobooks. So that's on my home as a suggestion. You save this. Maybe you want to try, and maybe this is the right session to listen to this book. But we're also promoting a history book based on my podcast listening. So that's something I've never seen before. So maybe that's something I want to save, or maybe even something I want to try and play now. And beyond these discovery experiences, we also have this incredible team of audiobook editors that curate titles, and they're just real cultural experts. And I believe it's this mix of human editorial expertise with our personalization products that make our recommendations feel more authentic and more culturally relevant of moments of global trends. And what you can see behind me is just one of my favorite recent examples. Banner Day for Star Wars fans each year. We launched a hub for science fiction and fantasy lovers. And as part of this, we also partnered with Willow Smith to promote her new sci-fi title, Black Shield Maiden, which she wrote with Jess Hamill. Since we're Spotify, we know who Willow's music fans are. We also know who sci-fi audiobook fans are. So we've been able to promote and elevate this hub to the perfect audience, and expect to see similarly positive results to the Spicy campaign. Most importantly, when you look at this holistically, this all tells us that our editorial and recommendation approach is really working. So I'll just leave you with one data point on this, which is that around half of discoveries of audiobooks come from our algorithmic recommendations or editorial approach. That's just a huge number. Okay, so that will lead me to my last point. Of course, we want it to be the best listener experience, but we also want Spotify to be the best place for authors and publishers to get their audiobooks heard. And to do that, we need to build technology and products for authors and publishers as well to create and distribute great content and to understand and grow your audience. So one example of this is a product we recently launched called Countdown Pages. And it's something we've proven to be successful for music releases. It's a really simple feature that enables you to pre-save the audiobook as a listener prior to the book's release. And you can count down the days, the hours, the minutes, the seconds, right to launch. And as soon as it's released, we then notify you as a listener. For authors and publishers, it's a really great tool to promote upcoming titles and generate early buzz with your fans. And we know that pre-savers are more likely to be early streamers. 4% increase in consumption week over week. And that was amplified directly by the appearance of our podcast. I'm going to give you another New York example because we're in New York. Although technically this one's New Jersey. So I don't know the local politics. Let's talk about Bruce Springsteen. And that's how we cross-promote music as well. A banner of Springsteen's memoir, Born to Run, was promoted to the top fans of his music and led to a 170% increase and consumption of the title, month over month. So these are just two examples. We have hundreds of these, but just proof that this cross-promotion is really working. Okay, so finally, we believe that one of the best ways to empower authors and publishers is by making it easier to create and distribute the content, as well as giving you all the insights to understand who your audience is, to really put the power in your hands. And so today, we have a suite of products through our brand Findaway, where we provide authors and publishers with analytics and aggregated demographic information so they can see things like the age, the gender of who's listening to their titles on Spotify. We've been told that this data surfaces really interesting and insightful insights that not only change how they approach their title on Spotify, but sometimes also change how they approach marketing, promoting their title off Spotify. But there's even more we really want to do here. So we've built products in music like Spotify for artists, and we've built products in podcasts like Spotify for podcasters. And this gives creators and rights holders access to analytics and a wide range of features that help them better manage their presence on our platform. So you can expect us to explore similar tools for authors and publishers of audiobooks as well. And so I have nothing to specifically announce today on this, but just a very heavy hint that there's a lot more to come here, and stay tuned.